I just want to do a little segment here about the importance of knowing your local elections, guys. So here's a story about a down ballot revolution is brewing in New Orleans. Um, Now this is a story that you should all be aware of, both for the implications in New Orleans, but also for the implications in your own local communities. One of the things that I have found is very important, and you'll hear it every election cycle, but do your research on the candidates. Actually look them up. It can be harder to find information on a local level. However, the the importance of looking up these people and learning what their stances are can save your community so many headaches. For example, looking up some of the people on the school board for my local election, I found that one of them was just an absolute nutcase who just wanted, like, straight up, like, yeah, I don't care about COVID. Send kids to school all the time. Like, have them go like no, like doorknobs. Like that was those were like his policies. Obviously hyperbole there, but like they were really bad and crazy. Another like the one of the candidates for our state supreme court is like brags openly about having been dragged into a courtroom in handcuffs for like refusing to take a sobriety test after driving drunk. Um, and obviously like and the only like meaningful parts of her platform seem to be like, yeah, I graduated from Harvard Law and I understand how judges think, but like her opponent is the incumbent and has been working as a judge for longer than she has been around. So like it's important to do your research to know who these smaller position candidates are, because often those candidates have more of an effect on your community than the bigger candidates, like the Senate seats. Those do have sweeping implications. However, your day to day life is far more impacted by these smaller elections that are happening in your community. So, do your best to educate yourself on what those people are doing. Um, and to that end, like let's take a look at this article. One of the most incarcerated cities in the country is facing an unprecedented wave of reform-minded judicial candidates. Um, Here we go. I do enjoy this article. I did read this one. It was very interesting. In early 2018, New Orleans defense attorney Nandi Campbell had an aha moment. She had come to a court to defend one of her clients for what she considered a bogus charge. The alleged offense was using an unauthorized vehicle, but boiled down to borrowing his girlfriend's grandmother's rental car without her permission. The grandmother had reported the car stolen, but dropped that claim as soon as she learned its whereabouts. Campbell understood that the district attorney's office was much more interested in her client's potential as an informant in an unrelated gang case, and believed they had arrested him for leverage. No judge in their right mind would have signed that warrant, she said, and yet one did. At this hearing, the prosecutor asked that the young man's bond be increased. Again, Campbell saw this as a move to pressure him into becoming an informant. Contrary to the judge who had signed the initial warrant, this one refused to impose a higher bond or hear any more arguments on the issue, thereby taking the teeth out of the prosecutor's threat of keeping him in jail. The prosecutor immediately dropped the case and the defendant went home. It dawned on me that if the first judge hadn't signed the warrant, we wouldn't need the second one, Campbell said. In other words, a judge could have thwarted the prosecutor's attempts to strong-arm a witness. That sealed the deal for me, that judges are powerful players in the system. Now, one of the things you guys need to understand is that judges are elected. There are a number of judges who get elected into different positions. So, Nandi Campbell is now running for to become a criminal court judge in her community. Um, it's it's a great way of reforming, looking into your local judicial elections is one of the ways that you can actually drastically improve your community and affect people's lives. If there are contested judicial elections on your ballot, please, please, please look into those like issues, because often you might find that there are up and coming judicial candidates who are looking to change the system and change the way that criminal courts treat defendants. Because again, we need to remember this all the time when it comes to like our legal system in the United States. The United States has more criminals than any other country on earth. Like in prison, we imprison more people than any country on earth. I think there is something like, man, I should probably just quote this accurately. Let me take a look. Incarcerated population, U.S. Yeah, we have 2.3 million people as of 2016. I'm gonna guess that. Yeah. By the way, in 2008, the U.S. had around 25% of the world's almost 10 million prisoners. So we literally have like a quarter of the world's incarcerated population in the United States. And again, we have 4% of the world's population. So we incredibly disproportionately incarcerate people in the United States, which is why judges, local judges, can have such an impact on your local community. They can drastically cut down how many people are going to prison. They can drastically change how punishments are meted out. They can change the punishment system into a rehabilitation system. There are a number of changes that judges can make on their own. We give judges a very sweeping level of authority in a lot of criminal cases, which is why these elections really matter on a local level. She, along with six other judicial hopefuls, make up an unprecedented wave of reform-minded candidates in New Orleans. Campbell and three others are running for criminal court judge, while the other three are running for juvenile, municipal, and magistrate court, where bail is initially set. Everyone in the group is or was a public defender, including two former chief public defenders, and none has worked as a prosecutor, which sets them apart from traditional candidates. Two are running against incumbents, while the rest are running against former prosecutors or law enforcement officials, including one who ran for district attorney in 2014, aside from one who worked as a judicial administrator at the juvenile court and publicly supported a controversial measure that put more teens behind bars for minor crimes. Cool. Um, Again, this is one of the things that like local court judges have a lot of leeway in doing, right? Um, New Orleans has long been one of the most incarcerated cities in the country, with a criminal justice system riddled with inefficiencies and corruption. Black men make up only 19% of the city's population, but in the jail that jumps up to 88%. Wow. While police and prosecutors are often blamed, some systemic issues track back to judges. For example, a federal lawsuit accuses felony court judges here of imposing bail without considering a defendant's ability to pay, and using bail to coerce guilty pleas at arraignment in order to quicken case resolutions. So this is one of the things that I feel like has been talked about for a while. I think John Oliver did a really good segment about it, like bail. But bail has basically become a way to imprison poor people. And I say poor people because usually wealthy people, middle class people, can afford to make bail. However, poor people who happen to be disproportionately black in the United States, due to the history of Jim Crow and segregation and slavery, um, when bail is set for them, it's often set purposefully high to make sure that they can't pay it. Because basically what that means is even though you get paid back if you show up at court, most people still can't afford to lose out on that amount of money. And then their choice becomes either stay in jail until their court date, which could be years, who knows when the court date might actually be, or plead guilty and take a lesser sentence. That might still include time in jail, but it might be less time than waiting for your court case, where you still might be found guilty, and because you weren't cooperative, you might get charged even more harshly. So like, it's a no-win scenario for a lot of people, which is how they eventually get pressured into signing guilty verdicts, even guilty pleas, even though they aren't guilty of the actual crime. So this is one of the ways in which our judicial system actually encourages wrongful conviction. Um, and I think we could maybe do better than that. And apparently, people on the ground who are defense attorneys think we could too. Um, let's see. For decades, we've been complaining about the court system and mass incarceration, said Steve Singer, a law professor and former chief public defender running for magistrate judge. You can yell and scream and cry and try and persuade from the outside. It's a lot easier to affect change from the inside. And I think this is something that a lot of people could do to learn, both in when it comes to reforming our criminal justice system, and also when it comes to changing our political system. It's a lot easier to push the Democratic Party to the left when you have leftists inside the party than it is to push them to the left in without having leftists in the party. This is why working within the party is easier than building up something from scratch, where you're essentially setting yourself up to yell and scream and cry and try and persuade from the outside. It's much easier to join the Democratic Party and be a leftist and push it left than it is to attempt other methods, which is why we're riding with Biden, baby. It's not yet clear how much of a dent these reform campaigns are making in the polls, but lately the city has shown an appetite for change. As have a lot of places across the United States. I don't think Bernie Sanders would have done nearly as well in the US if there was not a deep and abiding desire among us to change our attitudes, to change our ways, you know? Um, it's oh gosh, when I clicked something. I clicked something. No. All right. We're fine. We're good. We're Gucci. Um all right. Yeah. Yeah, if elected, Campbell plans to use the power of the bench to put fewer people away and impose shorter sentences. She plans to circumvent what she considers draconian mandatory minimums. Louisiana law doubles down on people with any prior convictions. The statute jarred Campbell as soon as she started practicing law in Louisiana, where she started her career straight from law school in New York City. You have individuals with no priors other than drug crimes doing 20 years. And when he's doing his 20 years, he's getting no rehabilitation, she said. I don't want to live in a community where it's just shuffling people off to jail for non-violent crimes. True! We shouldn't be doing that. All right. Oh, in her courtroom, she would employ a seldom used case law that gives judges leeway if they can give specific reasons to sentence a defendant to less time than the mandatory minimum. She also wants to incorporate input from the defendant's family and community before sending him or her away for a long time. For example, if a defendant's family speaks to the court, you see the impact it has on kids. She said, I say that people, I say I say to people that when my client goes to jail, his whole family is punished. True. True. Um, so yeah, local elections, guys, can impact all of this, which is why I'm saying whether or not you are going physically to the polls or if you are getting your ballot by mail, you should look up your candidates. Look up what they stand for, look up what they're doing, look up what their positions are, and maybe, just maybe, you might be able to get someone better into your local office. And they can have a big benefit to your community if that's the case. Boom, we did it. We did it, everyone. We talked about local elections. We did it. We did it. Mission accomplished.